Markets Now is brought to you by the 5-year anniversary of Brevant Seeds. Here's to 5 years of not just winning, but collecting one game-changing W after another. See all of our wins at Brevant.com/wins.
Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook with Jamie Gieseke with Paradigm Futures. All right, so we're seeing some mixed trading, both grain and livestock futures this morning, and it's been pretty quiet in the grains here, Jamie, as we're into holiday mode and light volume, and we got first notice day coming up here on Friday, right?
Correct. Yeah, first notice day and option expiration last week. Those are always fun times. So, you know, how it works out is a lot of grain buyers have been calling around and asking if people want to price or roll their basis contracts on the December futures, which is a very large volume considering harvest, right? A lot of your harvest bushels that you don't have a decision made on is that they're all based off the December futures contract. So what happens is, you know, people need to price or roll. So some farmers are choosing to price and just cash out. And either way, you need to sell the December board. And what we're seeing is just that last week, you know, going into options expiration, put some pressure on the market, and now again this week. So you know, it's kind of common to see this sell-off that happened here in corn, but really we've come down into that 100-day or 200-day moving average and some retracement levels, and corn's holding right where it needs to be.
And we should actually be getting through most of that pressure by tomorrow, right?
Yeah. There's some major ethanol plants that were, you know, calling around probably 5 or 6 trading days ago already and asking to price and roll. And a lot of the clearing firms will be cleaned up here this week. So to me, during this sell-off, what was most important was just watching the spread and watching basis. And both were indicating to us that, you know, there's still some underlying demand that's saying, look, we really don't see that prices need to fall off here. We actually need to be buying corn. So we saw the D-March spread actually tighten up last week. This week it's given back some, but just during that sell-off, the spread was tightening. So subtle, but important.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, corn export inspections yesterday were very stellar. So that export demand still at record pace, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, we're above needed pace on a weekly basis. I think it's like needed weekly is around 55 million. This past Monday, it showed 64 million bushel. Last week was 80 million bushel. And we really haven't even hit our seasonal strong period for corn exports. Typically, we're trying to export soybeans right now, but a lot of it is getting plugged full of corn.
So a lot of the attention obviously has been on the soybean market, though, because of the China trade framework and the rally that we had, $1.50. We took about 55 cents of that back this last week. So now the market needs what to go back and retest the highs? We just have to have proof of business, or what do you think the next move is here?
You know, the Chinese story, I feel like has kind of ran its course here so far. I mean, every time we get a sales announcement about China buying beans, it's kind of ho-hum now, right?
Yeah.
So the next phase is, you know, South American weather. December weather in South America is always very critical. January is critical. But what's important is, you know, so far Brazil has been getting the rain that it needs. It's below average, but Argentina's been getting some pretty good rains here now. But it's about what's next. In December, La Nina years in December, Brazil typically has enough moisture, right? It's usually not a concern in Brazil in the northern growing areas, which is the bulk of the area. And the concern actually gets shifted more towards northern Argentina, extreme southern Brazil, and Paraguay. So that'll be the next phase. December weather, and how does Argentina and southern Brazil perform?
And that's true not only for soybeans, and I've been hearing that maybe Brazil's soybean planting a little bit behind, which is going to impact the second crop safrinha. And so we're going to be watching not only South American weather for soybeans, but also for corn, aren't we?
Yeah, that's usually the case. I don't see much concern for Brazil
Okay.
soybean planting. I do know there are some that are pointing towards localized areas that are behind. But in general, across their vast territory, it's primarily on course, and I just don't see much concern right now for it.
Yeah. So let's talk about global demand for both corn and soybeans, because we are chewing into these big supplies that we have around the world, especially on corn year over year, aren't we?
Correct. So, November WASDE came out, and I like to always compare it to the archived version of a year ago and 2 years ago. You don't get to see on an individual report what the expectation was a year ago. They like to change it, intermonth. But 1 year ago, the projection for corn carryout globally was around 305 million metric ton for the 24 crop. Okay. And you fast forward to November WASDE here that we had this past month, and global corn carryout for the 24 crop is right around 291. Okay. And then you take a look at, okay, well, they were expecting, a fairly large corn carryout of 304, 305 a year ago. What is it this year? So now you look at the 25 crop projection, and it's down at 281. Okay. So we've gone from 304, 305 expected to 291 in 24 crop. And now 25 crop's actually starting even lower at 281. And that's off the back of 98 million acres of corn, 186 yield. That's baked into that 281. A very good safrinha corn crop, which we've pretty much forgotten about because our corn exports are just, on fire here. So I just kind of wonder, like, okay, we've had back to back really good corn crops, and global corn carryouts seemingly falling. I just kind of wonder, what's next for production. But yeah, that's to the thanks of demand increasing here globally.
All right, what about the wheat market? We had about a 60-cent rally off of the 5-year lows, and then we kind of stalled out here. What's the next catalyst that allows the wheat market maybe to start taking a little bit more of a leadership role in this grain complex?
Yeah, I think wheat was definitely hit by just supplies in Argentina hitting the global market, but then also the expectation of a Ukraine and Russia trade deal. I mean, this morning, take a look at energy's getting pretty, hit pretty hard. I think wheat's probably feeling some of that too, and that's just, the expectation of a trade deal is now getting baked into the energy markets and likely baked into the wheat market now too. So the risk shifts back to, okay, what if it doesn't happen, or what if it's not a perfect trade deal or a peace deal with Ukraine and Russia?
Okay, we'll end on the cattle market. We were limit down closes yesterday. We're under expanded limits this morning, but at least we're not using those. Where do you see us finding support here after we get some of this negative psychology of this plant closure in Lexington, Nebraska through the market?
Yeah. I mean, the plant closure, it doesn't actually change the fundamentals, but the supply is still the issue here. 203.57 on the live cattle is an area of interest for me here, and then I look for some sort of 38% correction or 50% correction, possibly back in the 220s, 230s. And then just the feeder cattle, probably in the psychological 300.
Yeah,
probably needs to hold here.
All right, thanks so much for joining us, Jamie Gieseke with Paradigm Futures. That is Markets Now.
Thank you.
You were right.
You were right.
You were right.
Well, you were right. When you choose your seed brand, there's winning, and then there's...
You were right. Should have gone with Brevant seeds.
When you choose Brevant seeds, you don't just win, you get to be right. Don't just win, win. Talk with your retailer or visit Brevant.com/win to get started.